to take on that onslaught at 4:30. All right, Armstrong, let's start with a graphic if you don't mind. This is a graphic that I had. This is in my inbox when I woke up this morning on Twitter. I was tagged into this. If you look at the 5 Power 5 conferences, we know how powerful the SEC and how strong the Big Ten is. But look where the Big 12 is. This is, again, according to all the, not all, but some of the ranking services, that the SEC, the lower the number, the better the number. Now, I still think there's much more of a difference between where the SEC, Big Ten are compared to where the Big 12 is. And I'll tell you some things that I did today. Then there's the ACC and Pac-12, which have had not very good years. So here's the Big 12. Yes, it's about still eventual television revenue and all of that. But look where they are when it comes to some of the ratings based on their teams, based on the conferences, and they are steadily right where they were even at this time a year ago, number 3 among the Power Fives.
Yeah, I don't know. Are those the name of like polls?
Yeah, various rating services and all that stuff. Now, that's one thing. Then I went to ESPN, and Craig, then you can respond as well, please, or even now. I went to ESPN. They have their football index. It's kind of their power index. I looked at every single Power 5 school, and I did this personally. The higher the number, the better. Everybody gets a figure. For example, right now, Georgia's got a 28.2. There are some teams, for example, in the ACC, in the Big Ten, also even in the SEC and also in the Big 12 that have minus numbers. You take all of the numbers, add them up, and divide it by how many teams there are, and the SEC has a 9.17 total. Of course, they have number 1 and 2, it's Georgia and Alabama. Big 10, 7.4. Big 12 is 6.51. That's even with Kansas, a minus 18.6 in the index. Then it's the ACC at 6.1, and then the Pac-12's at 2.1, based on who you've beaten, who you've played, and all of that. So my point to start off with this, we know how good the SEC is, the Big Ten is, but that's pretty good. The Big 12, considering, yes, it does include Texas and Oklahoma. If you replace them with Brigham Young and Cincinnati, there's not much difference in some of these numbers and figures as well.
Yeah, I think that's cool. You know, the Big 12 has, I mean, look, there's a top 5 team right now. There's 2 or 3 top 25 teams. Texas is very well going to be, you know, depending on what they do this weekend, jumping up in the rankings if they get a win. If not, then it'll probably take them some time to get back in the top 25. But, I mean, look, like half the conference is in contention. So, I mean, I'm not all that surprised by how competitive it is. Baylor's only got the 1 loss. They're still very much in it. Iowa State's only got the 1 loss. They're still very much in it. Oklahoma's unbeaten. Texas only has a loss to Arkansas, so on and so forth. You know, there's some teams like this weekend. West Virginia might eliminate itself because they're already 0-2 in the Big 12, so they can't lose again. I mean, they can't be 0-3 in the Big 12. They're done. They're absolutely done if that's the case. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to get some separation this week. Baylor's either taking their 2nd loss or West Virginia's taking their 3rd. And you can go across the other games as well. OU's either taking their 1st or Texas is taking their 1st. So, as far as Big 12 games go. So that's going to, you know, even out a little bit. But I think it's a highly competitive conference. I don't know if there's any team that's actually capable of beating a Georgia or an Alabama. So for all of the Vanderbilts and whoever that want to drag down the SEC number, I mean, the top 2 teams are the elite teams in college football right now. So if they're being dragged down, that's fine because they got the 2 best teams anyways that are almost guaranteed to be in the playoff at this point. But yeah, that's about where I would think the Big 12 would be. There's nothing out of the Pac-12 to really fawn over, especially after Oregon loses. And we know the mess that the ACC is. Clemson's irrelevant. Florida State's irrelevant. Miami's irrelevant. North Carolina is
a big disappointment.
They were supposed to be something. They've been irrelevant. So, yeah, Big 12, I think it's solid at 3rd right now out of Power 5.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You think about the Big 12 to me in the grand scheme of things. To me, it looks like a lot of the basketball seasons do when they don't have for example, until this year, there's really only one team that could legitimately win the national title. But now that they had a couple, but Baylor wins a national title, Kansas won a national title, Texas Tech's played in the Final Four. But there's a lot of years where the Big 12 is
a title.
Yeah. But there's a lot of years where there's not a team that's going to play for a title, but the conference is good top to bottom or pretty close to it. And I think that's what the football looks like this year. It's like, I don't know if anybody's going to win the national title or maybe even go to the CFP, but top to bottom, it's a really pretty good conference.
No.
Outside of an outlier here or there.
Yeah.
So that's again, we're still early. We're in October, where you kind of get an idea at the end of this month who's going to be a part of the stretch run. If you look at all these numbers, really it's data, it's indexes, it's power rankings, and it's probably more closer to what the BCS used to look like rather than anything else. And of course, that was replaced because that even couldn't sometimes be something you could rely on. Although, at least it still was a human element there when they went to the computers as well. So we're going to have Jet Dreddy West